What is up, and welcome to episode 30 of Dead with My Friends podcast. I am your co-host, Steve.
And I'm your co-host, Nick.
And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the critically acclaimed director Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill.
So, Steven, episode 30, sitting down, we're talking Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill. But before we start talking about the movie, dude, I think that it'd be worth it to shoot the shit a little bit about Monster Mania, because we haven't been to Monster Mania in shit. How long has it been?
It's been 4 years to the date when the world shut down for the pandemic. We were supposed to go to Monster Mania Con 2020 March. The world shut down, man. Everything just shut down that weekend. And literally 4 years to the date, we returned to Monster Mania Con 58. And it just felt so good to be back because
Really did.
At least I had not been to a true horror con since then. We do VHS Fest like every summer, but that's not really a con, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's much different. I had went to one of the Monster Manias that they did at the convention center, and like I mentioned to you, I didn't really like the whole layout or like the atmosphere there. It was like totally different than when they do it at the hotel in Cherry Hill. So this one was way better. I mean, Monster Mania always puts on a great con, and it was still awesome going to that other one. But this was just this was a lot of fun, man. We had some really good guests.
This is home to us.
Yeah, it was the first. That's the spot that I went to for my first one, and I was telling you that I met Nick Castle. I'm sure I mentioned it a million times to you every time we fucking go, but yeah, the first time was I met Nick Castle there, Kane Hodder, all those dudes. It was a pretty stacked con the first time I went, and that was a long time ago. But this time around, man, we had a lot of cool guests. Sam Raimi was there. We did not meet Sam Raimi, but
was not waiting 7 hours online just to meet him for 30 seconds.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that they were like, oh yeah, I waited 7-8 hours to meet Sam. It was just cool, like at least just seeing him hanging out.
Yeah, to see him in person. Yeah, most def.
So we had Jane Levy from Evil Dead 2013. We had Lou Taylor Pucci also from Evil Dead. Well, we met both of them, but you met them. Got pictures with them, everything. They were.
Well, you hopped in for Lou. Lou was sick.
Yeah,
bro.
Lou.
What a fucking guy, man.
He's a really nice guy. He was probably one. Yeah. He's on my list of like one of the nicest guys I've ever met at a convention. To be honest, he was cool. Their panel was really cool. When they sat down and talked about the movies and their careers and stuff like that. So I love when they do that. I always try to sit in on those as best we can. We did it with the Doug Bradley.
Yeah, with all the Cenobites. That was a good time. But yeah, this year's one that we returned to was fun. I finally got to meet the legend Tom Atkins. I mean, he's getting up there, man. I don't know, how much more of these he's got left in the tank. So it was very important for me to meet him. And when I did, I felt like I was talking to a grandparent that I hadn't seen in a while. And then meeting Michael Ironside, I was a little like, I don't know, starstruck, I guess. And like, it was funny because like when he shook my hand, first of all, I called him Mr. Ironside. He was like, that's my dad. You can call me Michael. And then like that broke the ice. And then he shook my hand. He was like, oh, your hands are cold. And he started warming up my hands.
Yeah, he was rubbing your hands.
I was like, this is so fucking cool, dude. This is Michael Ironside right here. Like, I don't know. I was like, normally I don't get too starstruck, but like Michael Ironside just caught me off guard.
Big
bro.
actor, man.
Yeah.
A lot of fucking great movies he's been in.
Dude, he's so good.
Who else did we meet, dude?
Jane Levy, Lou Taylor Pucci, and then just Tom Atkins, and we talked with Lars Fredrickson from fucking Rancid.
Yeah, he was cool.
He was cool to shoot the shit with.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
And that was Stacey Nelkin from Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. She was a sweetheart. You got your Halloween 25 Years of Terror poster
30
signed,
years.
Right?
I think it's 30
years of Terror. Sorry.
Yeah. Working on that.
So yeah,
boy.
Yeah, you've been working on that for a minute, so you got some more SIGs on that.
Yeah.
And what was really cool is, like, we went in there with a purpose of, like, the people we wanted to meet. I know you wanted to meet Brad Dourif, which we'll mention, like, Brad Dourif's shit was capped off, which shocked me, but, like, they were, like, limiting at 300 people. He was capped off, so he was really busy. But we made really good timing with the people we wanted to meet. Like, the lines weren't bad at all. We kind of went in and did our thing, and then we're just chilling the rest of the con.
Yeah, just walking around looking at the vendors. It's actually ironically enough how we came to, decide that we were going to do this movie,
Mhm.
Dress to Kill, because we went over to the Diabolic table and I had seen that they had the brand new 4K from Kino over there at the booth. So I grabbed it and then we were just shooting the shit on the way to the hotel talking about Dress to Kill. And I was telling you how much I liked it and how much of a good movie I thought that it was. And you said that you had the Criterion.
Yep, right here. I finally broke the seal on it. I'd remembered watching some clips from Eli Roth's History of Horror season 1, and I was like, yeah, I kind of want to check this out. And I'd seen that Criterion at the time had this release. So I picked it up on a Criterion sale, and yeah, finally broke the seal for this episode.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you did, man, because you only saw the clips, you said?
Yeah, I only saw the clips, and I just didn't get around to watching it. And when you'd mentioned, like, yeah, I'd be down to cover Dress to Kill, I was like, okay, this gives me a reason to finally sit through this movie based off the clips I saw. And yeah, man. So here we are talking about it. But before we get into Dress to Kill, like going back to the con, like in the vendors, like also at Diabolic, I had picked up the August Underground trilogy pulled out by Unearthed Films. And then we got to see the homies at Daikaiju Video. I fucking love those dudes. You could tell they've been in the game since like the early 90s with the Japanese media market. They really know their shit. We went hard over there, like just picking
Yeah,
up a
we
lot of
always do.
releases
That's
from
where I
them.
spent a lot of my money, man, was with
Yeah.
those dudes.
Yeah, they were
Any
really cool.
any movie you pick up and you're like, "Hey, what's the deal with this?" They're like,
They
"Oh,
know.
that one." Yeah, they know, man. And you tell them what you're
Yeah.
looking for. Those guys really know, man. So
Yeah.
I picked up some
Plus,
good
like,
revenge thrillers that they had recommended, and then the female RoboCop.
yes, yes, dude, that was so sick.
That was a
We'd
fun
watched that
one.
when we got back. And that movie fucking ruled, dude. I really liked that movie a lot. I loved the score.
The suit was
Fuck yeah.
great.
The suit was
They did a really
great.
good job. And
Like,
then they had like a cool little featurette at the end where they were going through all the gadgets and stuff. And
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah,
was
I
cool.
appreciate that kind of shit, man. Yeah, it was, I also picked up from the Vinegar Syndrome booth, I picked up Mother's Day and Redneck Zombies. Unfortunately, I missed out on the lenticular slip for Rabid Grannies, but it's still on the site, so I'll be picking that up soon. But yeah, it was just cool to be back, and we had a fun time. But here we are talking Dress to Kill. And again, this is Brian De Palma here we're talking,
Yeah.
man. And like, dude, you mentioned skin in the game, and brother's got the most skin in the game.
Brian De
I
Palma
mean,
certainly does, man. He's got a lot of fucking movies under his belt. Critically acclaimed, highly acclaimed director and writer, man. He did Sisters with Margot Kidder.
I still
Did
got to see that because I love Margot Kidder.
Yeah, he did The Fury. He did Phantom of the Paradise. You've never seen Phantom of the Paradise, right?
I have never seen Phantom of the Paradise, and I also want to see Body Double.
Body Double's great, man. Body
Yeah.
Double's probably one of my other favorites that he's done besides Dress to Kill. That's a really good one. But yeah, he did Blowout with John Travolta, Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage. Yeah, dude, he's just got tons of movies. Carrie.
Carrie, yes, Carrie. Fucking love me some Carrie.
Quentin Tarantino says it's one of the best movies of all time.
Oh, Carrie?
Yeah, he loves Carrie.
It's a fucking great movie, dude. Dude, Scarface too, which I totally forgot he directed Scarface. But let's talk about the cast here. So you'd mentioned Carrie. We've got Nancy Allen in this. What a heartthrob.
Yeah, she was in
Yep,
Carrie.
she was in Carrie. We've also got our fucking boy from Christine, fucking Arnie Cunningham.
Yeah, Keith Gordon.
Yeah. fucking dude, I was so happy to see him in this. We got Michael Caine, the fucking legend,
Having him
and
alone, man, having him alone in
yeah,
this movie is
top bill
is
right
top bill
there.
right there. Yeah, and Angie
Yeah,
Dickinson.
great cast, great director.
Yeah, and I mean he wrote it as well. So Dress to Kill had actually come from, you know, that movie Cruising?
Yeah, yeah, I still have to see that with Al Pacino.
Yeah. So that was a book originally. Brian De Palma had written a script because he wanted to make Cruising and he couldn't get the rights to do it. So he just adapted that script into Dress to Kill. And then William Friedkin, or I think, went on to direct
Cruising,
Cruising. Yeah.
and that's the director of The Exorcist, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So a
Yeah.
lot of the themes and things like that Cruising tackles is very similar to Dress to Kill. So
Oh, okay, okay. You know, Arrow's got that release of Cruising. I gotta pick that up the next time there's like an Arrow sale.
yeah,
I might
I
have to pick
want
up
to as well
Cruising.
because I've never seen
Yeah.
Cruising, but
Funny enough, you just couldn't help yourself but mention that this is like an American Giallo.
yeah,
And around this time last year, we covered an American Giallo, which was Alice, Sweet Alice, aka Communion, aka Holy Terror. And yeah, so here we are with another
American Giallo
American like Giallo, yeah.
in April.
And in April, you know, I don't know, something about springtime American Giallo.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
We'll have to see if there's more that we could cover in the future, you know.
oh yeah, there's tons of them. We can do Body Double next year. We can do
Okay.
Eyes of Laura Mars next year. There's a lot that we can do. So we'll
Cool.
see. But I definitely
Yeah.
want to get an Easter flick in next year of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely maybe Mallrats. I'd mentioned before I was kicking it with the homie Joe and he never saw Mallrats, so I came over with my fucking Arrow copy and we watched Mallrats.
That's the fucking Easter
It's one of
flick, man, for me.
Bro, that's my favorite comedy of all time. It's my favorite Kevin Smith movie. I'm definitely gonna watch it again for Easter weekend because upon the time of the recording, it's the weekend before Easter, but I love watching this like Easter weekend.
Oh yeah, I will be too.
Yeah. So I'm definitely gonna revisit that. But yeah, man. Before we get into the actual movie itself, I think it's time we read the back of our releases. Maybe you want to read yours since you got that new Kino Lober
Yeah, man.
release.
I'll read the write-up.
All right.
A disturbed woman adrift in steamy sexual fantasies. A New York psychiatrist who seems to have taken on one patient too many. A beautiful call girl caught between the cops and a vicious razor-wielding killer. And the killer herself, a blonde, elusive psycho named Bobby.
Brian De Palma invites you to a showing of the latest fashion in murder. Dressed to Kill.
Doctor, I am not paranoid. Bobby has threatened me over the phone. She said she was going to hurt me. My patient was slashed to death and my razor's gone.
There's all kinds of ways to get killed in this city, if you're looking for it.
Dressed to Kill. Murder. Made to order. Rated R.
Now playing at a theater near you. Check newspapers for showtimes.
Dress to Kill opens up with Angie Dickinson in a really steamy shower when she's watching this guy fucking shaving his neck, right? And I'm pretty sure your cut is the unrated cut as well because there's 3 different versions of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get the full frontal.
Oh, you get full bush, brother. Yeah. The real steamy shower. She's all fucking just enjoying herself with some soap, watching some dude fucking shave himself that she's like kind of getting off to.
Yeah,
And-
it's a weird dream, you know,
Very
which
weird.
kind of like sets the tone, I feel, for the movie because we come to find out, obviously, that it's a dream. She wakes up, and when she wakes up, her and her husband are going at it. And then, you know, after that, she goes and she meets with her psychiatrist, Dr. Elliot, Michael Caine, and as they're, you know, having their session, we find out that she's just kind of having like these sexual frustrations with her husband. she tells Michael Caine that, you know, he gave her the famous wham bam. She doesn't seem like she's too happy in her marriage, you know?
Yeah, she's very sexually frustrated. He's not satisfying her. She has tendencies for other men. Even Dr. Elliot, she's like, "Would you fuck me? Like, do you find me attractive?" And he's like, "I do." And then she's like, "Well, why don't we act on it?" And he's like, "Well, cuz I'm married and I don't think our affair is worth jeopardizing my marriage or yours."
Yeah, I love my wife is what
Yeah.
he says as well. I also wanted to say, I kind of just brushed over it real quick. She also has a son that we end up meeting before she leaves to actually go into meeting with Dr. Elliot, and it's Keith Gordon. So he's like this. His room's like filled with like these computers and all this stuff. She asks her son if he wants to, I guess, come with her into the city. He says he doesn't want to, and everything like that. And then she ends up leaving, going and meeting with Dr. Elliot.
And you know, he's working on this science project that will come into play later. But it was just really cool again to see fucking you know, Arnie Cunningham from Christine, because after revisiting that movie, I'd mentioned this in the past, but I slept on that movie a lot because I'm just not into cars. But revisiting that movie when we saw it at the drive-in, I then developed a newfound love for it. And yeah, it was just really cool to fucking see him in this movie. Once I saw him and I had the feeling he was gonna kind of be like a main role, I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty fucking into this.
Yeah, and man, and he does play a really big role in this movie later on. So Angie Dickinson, after her session with Dr. Elliot, she ends up going to the museum, which I would assume is, well, from the exteriors, it's the Met, the Metropolitan Museum, but they shot the interiors at this museum in Philly. So she goes and she's sitting down and she's like looking at art, but she's also people watching. So we see like a couple kind of getting a little handsy while they're looking at some art, and she like smacks his hand away, and then we see this family with this little girl who ends up running away, and then this mysterious dude comes and sits down next to her and doesn't say anything, and we can sense some flirtation going on between them. And I mean, when I had initially first seen this movie as a kid, right? And I had seen this when I was a young kid.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
dude, like late night HBO, man. I was talking with my with my friend yesterday about it, because I watched The Blob over the weekend, or during the week.
Don't lie. You were waiting for Real Sex to come on.
Yeah, I was definitely too, man.
Because we were all at that age,
Yeah.
bro, with fucking HBO.
But I was telling him I watched The Blob the other night, and I was like, dude, I forgot how fucking great that movie was, and I started talking about when I had first seen that as well.
Yeah.
Late night HBO.
The remake, just to clarify,
Yeah,
right? You
the
were
remake,
watching?
the
Yeah.
88 one.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, such a good movie. And then we were talking about the black box that everybody had with the when everybody was fucking stealing cable.
Hell yeah, my grandfather had that shit, man. He would record. So not only did we have HBO, but I think we had like Showtime and shit
You had
too.
everything, yeah.
So like,
Stole
bro,
everything.
he was recording any horror movie that came on Showtime Beyond and shit, or like fucking Cinemax and shit. Like he was, bro, just on the VHS, bro. Just, and between that and all the pay-per-views, wrestling pay-per-views and shit,
It was just
we were set.
unrestricted access to movies, man. And, you know, I was up late all the time, and this was one of the movies. So as a young kid, I had seen it. I didn't put together that the beginning was a dream,
Okay.
right? I mean, as an adult now, I know. So I always thought the guy in the beginning was her lover, and that the guy that she meets in the museum is that same guy, and they're just having a rendezvous. That's like what I thought when I was younger, but obviously
I could see how you get that,
right.
like, kinda,
So the beginning,
yeah.
the beginning's the dream, you know, and then dude, she just like randomly meets this guy in the museum. So they have a little bit of a cat and mouse. She like takes her gloves
That goes
off.
on real quick. Not gonna lie, it goes on for a little too long, in my opinion.
That scene might go on a little bit too long. They could have
Yeah.
definitely had cut that down a little bit, but I still enjoy it either way. So there was a point too when he's sitting next to her. So you can tell that she's kind of feeling it, but she's kind of playing a little bit hard to get. Um, she takes her glove off to show that she has the wedding ring, and then he gets up and starts walking away, and then she goes and pursues him. So like ultimately how he like ends up picking her up, and getting her back to his apartment, because that's ultimately what ends up happening is she drops her glove, he ends up finding it, and then he tries to give it back to her, but he goes up to her and grabs her from behind her neck, and she walks away, and then she's walking out of the museum. We get some shots of the killer, Bobby. Did you notice any of the shots of Bobby
Not
on the outside?
really. I won't lie. I did not really notice
They're
it.
they're pretty quick, man. They're pretty brief, but you can still see her. So she realizes that her glove is missing, and then we see a taxi cab, and then the guy's holding the glove out the window. So she goes to grab it, and then he pulls her into the taxi cab, and then they start going at it in a New York City taxi in the middle of broad daylight.
It's pretty crazy because he immediately like he forces himself onto her, but she's kind of into it too, and like the cab driver's just kind of like in his fucking
Yeah,
rear
watching
view,
it.
fucking watching, and he just starts going down on her like in the back of the fucking taxi cab, and then they end up at his apartment, and they end up fucking, and it's like later that evening, right? And he's asleep, she's awake. She's like getting her shit together, and she goes over to his desk, and she's like, she's gonna leave him a little love letter about how much she enjoyed the afternoon. And then she like goes to like call her house, which assuming she was hoping to speak to her son, but her husband Mike answers the phone. So she immediately gets like cold feet and hangs it up. So she goes back to the letter because she didn't like the first one she wrote. And it's funny because she's like rummaging through this dude's desk, and she finds this doctor's report, and this dude's got a fucking venereal disease that he's contracted, and she's like, oh fuck, like, so she's got to go.
Just bang this dude, like he's gonna
she
fucking
just
ruin
banged
my
this
life.
dude. Yeah. So she's in the elevator, and then she realized she like forgot her watch or something.
No, her wedding ring.
Oh, her wedding ring. Okay,
Yeah.
I knew she forgot something.
What about like when that little girl and her mom hop on the fucking before it all happens?
You know what's funny is that little girl, another little cameo appearance. That little girl is in Amityville 2: The Possession.
That was
she's one of the fucking kids. Yeah, that wasn't the cameo though that I'm talking about.
But dude, the little girl like looking at Angie Dickinson, where it's like the little girl just knows like shame
Yeah,
on you,
done-
you know?
Yeah.
So
Like you've done something wrong.
and you
yeah.
can see it on her face as well that she
Yeah.
like is shameful about what she did, dude. Just like
especially
having
after like
sex
hearing,
with some fucking random venereal disease ridden dude that
yeah,
aggressively pursued her in the Met,
yeah, and it's just like also hearing her husband's voice like on the phone probably brought some more shame.
This is why communication in relationships is very important, because you avoid this
thank you,
kind of
Dr.
shit.
Nick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Talk
But,
to your
so
partner. If the
she,
sex is whack. That's what she says. Like the sex is
Yeah,
boring.
no,
like
she's, like,
tired
very
of the
blunt
sex.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Mike about it? And she's like, no. Well, why haven't you?
Instead, she's taken out on Dr. Elliot. But yeah, so she realizes she forgets her wedding ring. She's hitting the fucking button to go back up to the floor, and then the elevator opens, and she gets attacked by this blonde-haired assailant in a fucking trench coat with black gloves, very Giallo-esque,
Very
and
Giallo-esque,
the straight razor,
which is the most Giallo thing.
Oh yeah, and she starts this female assailant starts fucking slicing her up, man, slicing and dicing. That's what I like to see with the straight razor,
She cuts her hand and starts cutting her neck,
so
starts
great.
cutting her
it's
face.
so good.
Yeah,
So good.
It's a really good scene.
But she's not dead. She's sliced up real good, and then the elevator gets to like another floor, where we then see one of our main players, Nancy Allen from Carrie, who plays as this escort named Liz, who's with her night call. And it's funny because they're in deep conversation, and as the elevator
About
opens,
stocks, because he's a stockbroker.
yeah, he's just heavy into the stocks and shit. But then he like sees something and he just takes off. And she's like, "Where are you going?" And then she sees, here's fucking Kate here, which we failed to mention. Like her name in the movie is Kate.
Kate Miller.
Kate Miller, yeah. And she's all fucking diced up and she's like reaching up and shit. And this shot is so good because like our fucking blonde haired trench coat wearing assailant is like waiting behind the doors, like kind of tucked on the side where Liz can't see, with the razor ready to strike. But then Liz sees in the fucking mirror of the elevator the assailant fucking waiting for
The
her.
gleam on the blade is what catches her eye initially.
Yeah, and then that's right. And then she sees the reflection of the assailant like waiting. And that fucking shot is so good, dude. And right before she's about to reach out, like I said, you know, she like then draws back. And just as the assailant's about to strike with the straight razor, the assailant drops it and Liz grabs it and the door's shut, you know. And then she goes to seek help from some like cleaning woman.
The cleaning woman sees everything that happens and starts freaking out.
Yeah, but she also sees that Liz is approaching her with the fucking straight razor.
Right,
and
she
thinks,
see,
like,
yeah,
that Liz did it.
And I mean, she also takes the razor too, which is, those kinds of things always really bother me in movies when the person who's not doing the crime touches the murder weapons.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like your prints are all,
your prints
are
are
now all
all
over
yeah,
it.
your prints are all over it.
Yeah. And
But
hold on, let
obviously
me
she
just-
has an alibi, you know, because she was
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that
she's-
dude, so she doesn't really
That's
have much
right,
to
yeah.
worry about at that point. But
So she thinks. So from that fucking climax of a scene, we then forward to Dr. Elliot's office, and he gets a call from this fucking Bobby
after
person,
the
right? With
murder,
this-
yeah.
after the murder, with this crazy ass voice who's like talking about how that she's been a naughty girl and you know what this assailant has done. It's the killer.
Yeah, like look out on the news. One of your patients was murdered or something like that. Don't make me be a bad girl.
Yeah, and she's like also reveals that like this is one of Dr. Elliot's patients, and she was like, since you won't approve of my sex change surgery, I'm now seeing another therapist by the name of Levy. And yeah, just kind of goes into details about like that she's done something bad and shit. And then you know, news gets out, or Dr. Elliot is summoned to the precinct to give a statement, because you know they make the connections that, you know, that this is Kate's doctor and she had seen him the day of the murder.
Yeah, so they're just trying to put all the pieces together at this point, because also like her son is at the police station. Nancy Allen is also at the police station, and she's like flipping through photos of blonde-haired women who could potentially have been the killer.
So at the precinct, like Dr. Elliot has a conversation with Peter, Kate's son, and you know, is like, you know, I'm here to help, this and that. And he's like, well, can you identify my mother's murderer? And he's like, no, I
like,
can't.
well, then how
He's
can
like,
you
"Then
help?"
Yeah, exactly. Like, how can you help? Like, I don't want someone to talk to.
But her son's now also having survivor's guilt, and he's talking about, he kind of alludes to that when he's talking to Dr. Elliot about how like this would have never have happened if I would have just went with my mother and not stayed home.
Yeah.
So this
he
is
feels
now
very
his
responsible.
yeah, this is like now his call of action too, you know, and that's going to play a big role in the movie throughout, because he goes on to start investigating things on his own.
Yeah. But before that, or after that, I should say, between Dr. Elliot and Peter's conversation, Dr. Elliot is summoned to Detective Marino's office, and we see Peter pick up this earpiece so he can listen in on the details of the conversation.
Yeah, he's got like his own little gadget that he made. I really like what Brian De Palma did with the camera work on this. He does like a split diopter shot where Peter is in focus and it's a close up, but we can also see what would be the depth of field, which would usually be blurry, but that is also sharp focused. I love that shot. I love what he does with that. But we hear the conversation going on through Peter's gadget, and it's like a back and forth, which is fucking great.
Yeah, really good dialogue here, and like, Detective Marino, he's just like trying to like, well, you saw her the day of the murder, and kind of like, do you know, like, maybe one of your patients maybe have been responsible. Dr. Elliott's like not happy being questioned about this, and he's like about patient confidentiality and all this shit, and he's like, well, can I see your patient book to see who was there? And he's like, absolutely not. I have to protect the rights and privacy of my patients, this and that. Peter also hears about the troubled marriage that Kate has with Mike. And, again, you said survivor's guilt and all that kind of shit. So he's kind of like, all right, I need to look more into this.
And I mean, it's hard enough for this kid losing his mother in such a horrible way. He also doesn't have his father either. So, because Mike's not his dad, Mike's his stepfather. So, and I take it that he doesn't really like him too much.
Yeah, they kind of allude to that. And also to hear that your mom's been sleeping around with someone else too, like, all of that hitting Peter at once has got to be like a heavy load.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. Some of the scariest things to me are like when you hear things about people that you never knew, right?
Yeah.
So like, has anybody ever asked you like, oh, if you can have like one superpower, what would it be? And be to read minds? And I'm like, no way, man. Reading minds would be so scary to know like the deep thoughts of people or like the real people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like what he uncovers when he eavesdrops on this conversation. So that's sad and it's scary, in my opinion.
Hell yeah, man. So Detective Marino then interviews Liz to get her statement, and she's kind of a main suspect because of that cleaning lady and her having the murder weapon, and her not really, even though she does have an alibi, her alibi is not in town. He's not around.
Yeah,
and they also
true.
He pulls up her file too. He's like, listen, I know you're an escort here. You've been arrested before. You may be a high class escort, but you're still an escort, and this and that. So he's like, I got tabs on you. You're a prime suspect. You think you're just a witness? No, you're like a prime suspect right now.
You didn't even like initially know that she was an escort. You just like saw her hanging with this dude and they were talking about stocks. And then it's like they drop it on you that, oh no, she's a high class hooker.
Yeah.
She got a record.
Yeah. She's got quite a record. And Detective Marino, he's like, you got 48 hours to, come up with your alibi here of this other dude that you were seeing the night of the murder, or I'm fucking booking you. Pretty much. So she's like in a scramble, she's calling her escort agency to try to get in contact with this guy so she can have her fucking
when
alibi.
She's at her apartment, right?
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
This is a really good scene too, because I like what Brian De Palma does with the split screen here, because it's Nancy Allen in her apartment having this conversation, watching the television, right? And
then we got Dr. Elliot on the other side
watching the same show, but the whole, I think it's called Donahue, who is actually like a real television host. And on the show, there was an individual, a man who was a female, or a man trapped in a female's body, man wanting to be a female on the show. And they're both watching it, but Dr. Elliott's obviously watching it more so, and it's kind of just like background for Nancy Allen's character. But just the way that it's shot is great,
Yeah, because Dr. Elliott's super fixed, because this trans woman is talking about how she got like the surgery, but how she also kind of has like fatherly like roles, because she was a father, and like, just going into super detail, and you see Dr. Elliott like perk up, and then you also keep in the back of your mind his patient Bobby, who's trans, and wants to get the surgery, but Dr. Elliott won't approve of the surgery. So like all of these like like intertwining things are just happening to set up for things later, and it's just like, yeah, the whole split screen shot, it's great.
Yeah, it's great, right? They do it in
Yeah.
Carrie too. He did it in
Yes,
Carrie.
you're right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you are right, man. Yeah. Yep, I totally forgot about that. It's been a while.
When the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, yep. Yeah,
See Carrie, she's
man.
like standing there, and then the doors are closing, and you see all these people fucking running around and everything, and yeah, it's like really fucking
She's
good.
great. So then we fast forward to a scene where Peter is outside of Dr. Elliot's office, and he's timing everyone that leaves Dr. Elliot's
Smart
office.
fucking kid, man.
Dude, kid is so fucking smart. And he's writing down all these times, and you're like, what's this about?
What I gather from that, though, is like he's timing the sessions.
So you think, but also timing like how long it takes them to walk out or exit the building. Because if you look at the times, they're like 8 seconds, 9 seconds, you know.
Well, because what he overhears is the detective inquiring about the patients, because like, oh, is it a possibility that, you know, one of your patients had ran into her on her way out or anything like that too, which is, you know, obviously a possibility.
Because Dr. Elliot also does like outpatient work where he visits like the psych wards to do, you know, some therapy and shit. And Detective Marino thinks like maybe it's one of them. You know, so like it comes down to Detective Marino just wanting to see like what patients were there the day of the murder. So later that evening, Liz is heading back to her apartment, and she's being stalked and followed by, which we assume is now Bobby, who's watching her outside of her apartment. And then the next day, Peter goes back to Dr. Elliot's office on his moped, and he sets up the science project that he's working on in his moped. He's like chains it to a tree and puts this like, it's almost like a camera that captures like 20 seconds of like footage or something like that.
And I think that that's what he was like timing for.
Yeah,
because it wasn't a video camera. It was just a
some
camera
kind of frame
that'll
by
like
frame.
that'll just snap shots every, you know, 10 minutes or
Yeah.
something like that, or, you know, whatever. So he's like getting photos of all the patients that are entering and exiting Dr. Elliot's office.
So then Dr. Elliot gets a call again, and it's Bobby. And Bobby is talking about how she knows about Liz and her being a nosy bitch, sticking her fucking nose pretty much in her business, and how she's going to take care of her while using Dr. Elliot's razor. Which we'd glossed over that Dr. Elliot, after the first murder, his razor was missing.
I'm pretty sure Bobby says it. Bobby says when Bobby's talking about, you know, what they did.
Real quick, going back to, you know, when Liz and Dr. Elliot are watching that special on the trans woman who got the post-op surgery and all that, there is a scene where Liz is on an escort call, and she's here to see some dude from Ohio. And this is the cameo appearance I was talking about before.
Oh, okay.
Because it is none other than Harry from Christmas Evil.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, and the minute I saw his face, I was like, yo, Christmas Evil? And I like looked into it like immediately, and I was like, holy shit, that's fucking Harry from Christmas Evil, which that is a fucking underrated Christmas slasher. Vinegar Syndrome had put that out years ago.
I remember.
Fucking a great movie. So it was just really cool. I wanted to shout that out, that Harry from Christmas Evil played the dude who made the escort call.
Well, shout out Harry from Christmas Evil.
Hell yeah. So just wanted to throw that in there. So yeah, after Liz gets done with her escort call, she's riding in a cab, heading back to her apartment, but she notices she's being followed. And funny enough, the cab driver was one of the camp counselors in Friday the 13th Part 2, who always wore the funny that like the taxi cab like hat that drove the pickup truck, who gets the spear through the bed.
Yes.
It's that he's the taxi cab driver.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so we got all these cool like little fucking horror movie cameo appearances,
Small world in the horror in
yeah.
the horror world, man.
Yeah. So she's like, "Hey, if could you kind of step on it or lose this person because I'm being followed?" And he's like, "Sure, no problem." He's like, "Let me take you out sometime, this and that." And she kind of, she entertains it because she's like, she really just wants to fucking get to her place, but she doesn't pull exactly to her stop because she realizes I'm being followed. So let me stop here.
So they're like he's like really hauling ass through like the New York City traffic, and then
Yeah.
the person who's following her, who we could only assume is Bobby. I mean, pretty sure it is Bobby because there are some shots in the beginning of that scene. One scene that I really liked where Brian De Palma also did the whole split diopter thing again, where they both look back at the same time. You remember that scene? That's like a famous scene that they do. So then once Nancy Allen gets in the cab, Bobby gets in the cab, and then that other cab is chasing him down. That dude's doing a good job at getting her away, though.
Yeah. So right before she gets off at her stop, which she, smartly is like, "Don't stop at my apartment. Stop at this stop here." She gets out and she's like, kind of hauling ass, and he notices that someone else gets out and is like following her. So he like pulls his cab door out and like takes out the person. It's a blonde woman. Now, you think it is Bobby without getting too much ahead. But how could it be Bobby? Because when she gets to her apartment, boom, it's revealed there's Bobby waiting there for her, who tries to attack Liz, and she takes off towards the subway. Now, this'll play later because there's a scene that involves Peter, without getting too ahead, that you're like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Like, why is there two? Yeah. My second watch, I was like, oh, that was that.
Right.
So anyways, so Liz is on the run. She's trying to get away from Bobby, who was waiting for her at her apartment. She's now in the subway. Nick, we know the city well. We live like an hour outside the city, give or take. Well, I 2 hours, you like about an hour.
I love the chase through the city. I really like the chase through the city. I like the chase through the subway.
But the subway at night, for a woman alone,
man, just the subway alone, man,
especially in New York, 1980, man.
Yeah,
she's waiting for the train, and she runs into some street punks who are like, "The fuck's your deal?" And they all kind of gang up on her, and they're like, "Yo, let's fucking run a train on her." And like, so she hightails it just in time and makes it onto the subway, and there's a fucking police officer there. And she's talking about how she's been like fucking harassed by these street punks.
Yeah, and then like he pops his head out and he looks down and like nobody's there. This is cool too. He looks down to see that there's nobody over there, and then he pops his head back in, and then you see them jump in. But you also see it happen with Bobby too.
Yeah. So you're like, oh shit. So not only are these dudes on the train, but so is Bobby.
Right.
And it's funny too because like this officer is just side-eyeing the shit out of Liz. I think he suspects that she's an escort, so he's like, fuck you, kind of like, and so he gets off at his stop, and then that's when the street punks come onto her cart, and she's like, fuck, I gotta book it. So she's, they realize like that she's on that cart, so they like chase after her, and then she gets into the next cart, and that's when she's attacked by Bobby. But just as Bobby's about to like slash her, Bobby gets maced by someone out of nowhere, and it's fucking Peter. So after Peter rescues Liz with his own little mace spray, they go back to Liz's apartment, and Peter explains the science experiment that he used to capture Bobby on film, and how he knew to pursue Bobby to be there at the right time to save Liz. And they start making connections together because he realizes that she's a witness. It's his mom that was murdered. So they build a connection and they want to kind of like work together to help, track this killer down.
So Liz goes and meets with Detective Marino, and if I'm correct, she goes and tells him about this information, but she goes and tries to protect Peter from
Yeah.
all of it. So, because Marino asks, like, how do you know this? How do you know this stuff?
And she's like, well, I had a witness and this and that.
Can't tell
again,
you who
but
it is, but Detective is still really fixed on getting to see what the appointment book of Dr. Elliot looks like.
Yeah.
So he kind of like pins her up to it that, like, the time's still ticking for you, and your alibi and you coming up with, your John who you were with. But if you do this and you get Dr. Elliot's patient book for me, we might be able to work something out. Not verbatim, but like it's kind of like what he alludes to.
Yeah, it's like it could buy you some more time because
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Get me that book.
and that's where Liz and Peter develop this plan for Liz to pretty much
She like books a session and goes and sits with Dr. Elliot while Peter waits outside with binoculars from across the street and is watching and observing everything that's like going on. So she's got a man outside, So, but what Liz's intentions are is she's gonna like try to sexually attract, Dr. Elliot and make moves on him in order to get her hands on the book ultimately. So she kind of does what Angie Dickinson does in the beginning, where, they're having their conversation and then, do you find me attractive? She starts talking about the bulge in his pants and everything like that. And you can tell that Dr. Elliot is certainly into it and is certainly becoming aroused by it,
and he's like, I can't, I'm a doctor, I'm married. She's like, I fucked plenty of doctors and I fucked plenty of married men, so what makes you different? And then she's like, well, I'll give you a few moments. I'm gonna go powder my nose. Why don't you undress? And if not, you could at least fuck my mind some more. So she goes into Dr. Elliot's office. She's looking for
she's
that
stripped
fucking...
beforehand too, and she's says something like, oh, like when I come back your clothes better be next to mine or something. And
yeah, she's kind of putting it all out there tastefully. I mean, Nancy Allen, beautiful woman, being seductive.
When she goes into the other room, we have a shot of Dr. Elliot and he's looking in the mirror and he gives like a smile, and you're just like, oh,
yeah, he starts like kind of undressing
you're like,
a bit.
He's gonna, I guess, go for her. He's gonna go for it.
Yeah, so she finds the patient book and she finds like the last patient who'd walked out, who she thinks like, they're like, okay, we got our guy. She writes down the address. As she comes out, the room's all dark and she's like, oh, are you just playing shy?
Really good atmosphere too, because there's a thunder and lightning storm going on the outside. So it's like we're getting flashes of the room and everything like that. But it's also cutting away to Peter outside as well, in the rain, with the binoculars on. It's becoming hard to see inside.
Yeah. But then he starts to see that there's a blonde woman in the room that Liz can't see, but he can. And he's like trying to warn her. But as he's about to like bang on the window, some blonde person comes up behind him, puts the hand around the mouth, and you're like, oh, what the fuck? Are there two killers? Like, what's going on here? And just as that happens, that's when Bobby goes to attack Liz. And just as she's like right by the window, then Peter somehow gets to the window and he tries to warn Liz, but then the other blonde person behind Peter pushes him out of the way and we see a fucking shot.
Yeah, gunshot through the window.
Gunshot through the window, and it hits Bobby kind of like
in the
upper shoulder, in the throat.
Like kinda, yeah, you're right. Like in the shoulder, in the throat.
And Bobby falls back, and and it's revealed it's Dr. Elliot. So that's the big reveal, that Dr. Elliot is Bobby the killer. And then we forward to Detective Marino's precinct, where they talk about, oh yeah, Liz, we've had an undercover cop tailing you because I had a feeling you were gonna go, to get the patient book. So just for an extra security, like, we had someone tailing you just in case you got into too much trouble. Which brings me back to the whole cab driving thing.
Yeah, that wasn't Bobby. That was the police officer.
So yeah, Detective Marino had this whole operation going, this and that, and then we have Dr. Levy there, because we also failed to mention before, we glossed over this, but Dr. Elliot and Dr. Levy have a meeting about Bobby, and Dr. Levy's asking questions to or Dr. Levy is asking questions to Dr. Elliot about Bobby, and like, why won't you allow Bobby to go through with the surgery, this, that, and the other. So that's when Dr. Levy drops all this info that he suspected Dr. Elliot and how Bobby, was a patient. And it pretty much explains that, and I love this, that Bobby would come out anytime Dr. Elliot was aroused, and would kill anyone that aroused Dr. Elliot. And the male side of Dr. Elliot was still holding on to a bit of that, which was blocking Bobby from getting
fully through
the surgery.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
kind of like that
I love it.
personality fully
It's
coming
like a
through.
split. Exactly. And that is a fucking fantastic writing. That's like just it's so good.
But you also
I love it.
notice that, like, it is fantastic writing. But when we have like shots with Michael Caine, especially like when we have the split screen shot, we see like a lot of mirrors and everything used in this film, which I can only assume would be like the mirrored reflections and other personalities. Like that's kind of what it could be used for. Like. Kind of like subtly showing that Dr. Elliot does kind of have another personality.
It's great. I dig it. And they give you like, pretty much in that scene, they give you like all the explanations why Dr. Elliot was the way that he was and all this shit. And it's fucking great, man. It's just a test to Brian De Palma's like writing and shit.
Yeah, man. This script was apparently like really loved in Hollywood, and people were really trying to pick up this film. There's actually a scene that Brian De Palma had cut out from the movie that's actually in the script. The movie starts out with all these close-ups of a man shaving his body with a straight edge razor. And then I think ultimately like cuts off his penis, something along those lines. So there was like things that were like initially written in the script that kind of like, I think, alluded to the twist a little too early.
Okay. I wish actually that would have been cool if they would have put it as a flashback after everything was revealed, because that would have been cool.
Yeah, man. I mean, for the 80s, this flick pushed a lot of boundaries.
Yeah, it almost got an X rating.
Yeah, I mean, pushing the boundaries on sexuality, and then definitely pushing the boundaries on violence, because it's a pretty, that fucking blade scene's very intense, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in a sense, but also Maniac was already out, and that completely pushed.
Was that like a big Hollywood flick with big Hollywood actors?
Yeah, you're right. Even though it came out the same year.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right.
It wasn't as mainstream Maniac. Maniac really pushed the fucking boundaries on violence, man. Like, that's a very violent flick. But Maniac's also not stylized and classy like Dress to Kill is,
Yeah.
Like the way Brian De Palma shoots it, dude, is it's very dreamy, right? Like, it seems like there's like a bit of a haze, and I love the dreamy feel of it, man. And I just remember watching it as a kid really late, like this movie as well as like Body Double, both of those movies, watching them feel like a fever dream.
Yeah. So yeah, after all this said and done, Dr. Elliot ends up in a psych ward. Um we have a scene also where I'll get back to the psych ward, but we also have a scene where Liz and Peter are out to dinner, and Liz explains like people that are trans and like the whole shit with Dr. Elliot. And it's so funny because as they're having this conversation about like how they turn penis into a vagina and shit, there's this woman sitting at the table next to them who's just looking so appalled at the conversation. I just found it really funny.
Just like just listening in, you could see her facial expressions. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure they're eating at the top of the World Trade Center in that last
Oh,
scene.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the
Wow.
top of the World Trade Center.
Damn, dude, that's
Yeah.
fucking crazy if that is so, cause yeah. But yeah, so Peter like offers his place because she's kind of like still like, shooken up.
And he
after
lives in
everything
like the
Liz.
suburbs, dude. So, to go through all of that shit, I would expect that it was like a week, of all of that happening, just to get the fuck out of the city, for a little bit in that chaos. And yeah, he invites
Yeah.
her to his place, and
Because
'cause-
Mike's away.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, you could come stay at my place for a bit.
I could use a
And,
vacation.
Yeah, and then we forward to the scene of Dr. Elliot in the psych ward, and he's in bed recovering from the fucking gunshot to the shoulder, and this nurse like kind of almost like it like comes on to Dr. Elliot, or checking him, but in a very sexual way, so it seems. And Dr. Elliot like jumps up, attacks the nurse, and is like undoing her uniform, and all of the other psych ward patients are like cheering on and shit, and you're like, whoa, okay. So Dr. Elliot's about to escape from the psych ward as Bobby. And then we go to Peter's house where Liz is gonna get freshened up in a shower and someone's watching them. So you're like, oh shit, like yeah, Bobby's escaped, this and that.
Yeah, it's
and
almost
is
like
watching
it's almost like a
POV.
repeat of the beginning scene in the shower with
Yeah.
so Nancy Allen's now in the hot steamy shower and lathering herself up, just enjoying herself, and Bobby enters the house.
Bobby breaks in. Peter's working on his like science shit, and just as Liz is finishing up in the shower, I think she like hears a noise and like looks out, and she sees like a stocking and a white shoe,
The
right?
nurse's shoes.
A nurse's shoe, and she's like Peter, like just like is that, and then like no answer, because if it was Peter, he would have answered, and she's like on edge because of everything that she's gone through in this last week. So she's like looking around for a weapon or some shit. And it's great because you think Bob at first it shows like Bobby there waiting, but then it's like a setup. And it's
She comes
like
out
a
of
fake,
she comes out of the shower, and it's all very slow, very slow, very quiet. And then she goes to the bathroom mirror behind as a cabinet, and she opens it up to get a razor blade, and the camera cuts, and then you see that the shoes where Bobby initially was are empty, and it was a fake out, and she closes the window, or she closes the mirror, and then Bobby's right behind her, and
classic. I love like that
yeah.
classic mirror close where like the killer's
Yeah.
like right behind you.
and then
So you get
slices
that.
and then slices her throat, and then she wakes up and she's screaming, and it turns out that whole shot was a dream, and Peter is there waking her up, consoling her, and everything like that. But that whole ending scene, the whole psychiatric scene, and the whole shower scene was just all a dream, and definitely caused because of her trauma.
Yeah. Which I'll be honest, I did not like the ending.
No,
I wish
that ends
there
like
was-
Carrie too, because it ends in like that dream sequency type deal when Carrie reaches out and grabs the girl's arm when she's going to drop the flowers at the grave, everything, and so you
it's
didn't like the
fucking
ending.
arm comes
yeah,
up. No,
yeah.
I didn't. I did like it for Carrie, but I did not like it for Dress to Kill. I wish that there was a final confrontation between Bobby, Liz, and Peter, I would have liked to see
Like
that,
at
like
the
one
house,
last attempt. Yeah, yeah.
like Bobby
But
would have
like
just went in there and went through them, sliced them all
y-
up, killed them all.
no, not even. Like I just wanted to see one more final confrontation, struggle, and like, yeah, of course, I want to see Peter and Liz survive, but I didn't like that it was like a dream. That whole shit was a dream. Truthfully, it kind of. I was like, that was kind of.
Sometimes the dream shit's a little bit of a cop out.
Yeah, I won't lie.
Cops it out a little bit.
I was not with it, and when we get to overall ratings, like this definitely bumped down some points for me
bumped
for
it down.
sure. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, but yeah, that's Dress to Kill. That's Dress to Kill.
I really love this movie, man. As violent as it is at times, it's, you know, much more of a
Like an erotic thriller.
yeah, exactly. It's a
with a bit of American Giallo and shit, and yeah.
So if you're looking for like an extremely violent flick, like this really isn't it, besides like that one scene. But I love it, man. What's the runtime on this?
An hour and 45 minutes.
For me, man, it's a very quick one. I'm pretty
don't
into
get me
it the
wrong.
whole time.
The pacing,
Yeah, how do you
moves
feel about
along
pacing?
just fine. Great. The pacing's great. My initial complaints, and this will kind of lead to my rating, is I think it could have used some more bodies, at least 2 more kills. Somewhere along the lines, I think we could have got 2 more razor kills. I know we get the fucking Liz at the end, but it's a false one.
Yeah, I mean, I could kind of agree with you on that, but if you think about what motivates Bobby, that wouldn't really make sense, because Bobby isn't just going out and killing people. Bobby's going out.
Maybe they should have. Hold on, hear
threw
me out.
some people in
Dr. Elliot, who he can't help but find himself attracted to certain women, and then boom, Bobby comes out like, oh, you're aroused by this other patient.
You want to know?
Fuck.
You want to know something cool? There's a novelization of this, right? Where I don't know if I'm right or wrong about if this is in a script or the novelization, but there's a scene in either or, where Bobby goes out and picks up some guy, and then I think brings him back and then finds out that he's a guy.
That would have been great in this too.
Right? Like just like a little cutaway when all this shit is going on.
Yeah. I would have loved to see that.
At a fucking bar, a New York City bar. Bobby, you know, is picking up a dude. They go back, finds out that he's not a she, and then
you don't want to fuck me? Boom, castration,
and then kills him
with the
right?
straight razor.
So,
yeah, dude.
You know, there could have been like even just that one kill could have probably satisfied you with an additional one on there. So Brian De Palma definitely could have maybe added a couple more.
I think personally, I don't know, brother. I'm kind of like ready to get in my rating unless you have any more final thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, nothing else that I really want to say about it, dude. I mean, you want to give your rating first?
Yeah, let me give my rating. So out of 10, as we always do, I'm going to rate this a 7.4. Great acting, great writing, great camera work. You know, it's Brian De Palma here. All right. We all know how good he is. But my initial complaints are the ending being all a dream sequence. I would have liked one final confrontation between Liz, Peter, and Bobby. And I feel like it could have used 2 more kills, like you'd mentioned, with Bobby going out to pick up a man. I thought that would great opportunity for a kill, and maybe like one more patient of Dr. Elliot being aroused and killing, you know, Bobby coming out and killing. So yeah, my overall rating 7.4. I still enjoyed this movie. Overall, it's a great thriller. I just think it could have used a little more.
Okay. All right. I mean, I can get behind that. I mean, for me, man, I'll be honest. This has always been a favorite of mine, movie that I really have always enjoyed. I feel like it's almost a near perfect movie for me. I mean, I love Brian De Palma. I think it's a great script. I think the acting is great as well. Kind of just picking back off all the things that you said. To a degree, I also agree with you that there could have been more kills. a little bit more stylistic ways that he could have possibly had thrown that in. Cinematography is great. I love the dreamy feel. I love a good Giallo. I think the kill was great. That's a great kill, man. Beautifully done, you know, like a beautifully horrific film in certain areas, man, you know. I give Dress to Kill an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
You said this was the first time you saw it, right?
Yes, this was the first time I saw it.
Because I feel like I've talked about it a bit to you when I've told you how much I liked it.
Yeah, no, you've mentioned it in the past before. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy that I finally saw it. This movie is not leaving the shelf.
Nah, man, no way.
Of course I'll revisit it. It's very well written, obviously very well directed. It just could have used a little more New York grit, you know, tastefully.
Not this one, man. This is classy New York.
Yeah, very classy. But yeah,
it's not
so
that 42nd Street shit.
No,
with
for sure.
Fucking New York Ripper and Maniac.
Yes. Now you're talking my language, man. You're talking my language.
As much as I like that, it's funny, dude, because it's like on that spectrum.
No, it's two opposite sides of the spectrum. It's fucking great, though, in a sense. Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, man. Like I'm on the De Palma side of it. You know,
okay.
I'm on the Brian De Palma side of you know, the New York grit.
You know me, brother.
I do love it though.
Maestro Fulci.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
And fucking Joe Spinell and everything. You know, just that New York fucking sleaze grit. But yeah, this is Dress to Kill, Nick. It's been awesome talking about it. I'm happy I finally broke the seal on my Criterion collection and I finally watched it.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm happy I picked it up.
It was a long time coming.
I'm happy I picked it up. I'm happy Diabolic DVD had it. I'm happy we went to the convention. It was meant for us to sit and talk about this one. It was meant for you to finally fucking see it. Very happy you enjoyed it. So I think it's time for you to take us out, brother.
All right. The best way to support Dead with My Friends podcast is to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find us all at Dead with My Friends podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast from. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review, whether it be on, I think, Apple Podcast or Spotify, Anchor FM. It just helps the show grow. Be sure to subscribe to us again on YouTube. Leave us a like, a comment. We really appreciate it. But yeah, moving forward, we're definitely going to be like one episode a month.
Yeah, we were doing bi-weekly, but for the time being,
right now, life things are just happening and we're pretty caught up in our own things. And we want to just give you like a really good episode each month that we know we could put the time and work into and the conversation.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a bit easier to focus on one movie for the time being. So we're definitely going to give that. And then eventually, you know, once things settle,
free up more and settle, then we'll try to go back to 2.
Dead with My Friends isn't going anywhere.
No, yeah, trust me, we're not going anywhere. We're just kind of scaling back a bit to work on our own shit in the meantime. But you know, we do have some cool shit in the works behind the scenes that we haven't announced yet. I know we'd made mention in the past about our website. That is still being worked out. We're almost ready to launch that.
Definitely.
And we have some really cool designs in the work, which I can't wait for people to see.
I know, I'm excited too. Yeah, we have a bunch of shirt. We have a bunch of shirt designs that I had gotten done. So we're gonna be doing some drops with that. So my whole idea was kind of like to supplement the lack of the additional episode was to try to do a shirt drop. So that's all set up. The only thing is just like some back end shit on the website that I'm just trying to figure out right now. So it's
we're
nearly
working
there.
on it.
Yeah,
we're almost there, but I can't wait for people to see the shirt designs that we have in store. I call me a fucking mark for myself, but I will proudly wear our shirts. The person that we are working with,
Yeah.
they fucking kill it.
Yeah, he does a
I
great
couldn't
job.
be happier with the person that we've been working with on these designs, and I can't wait to have my own shirt and to see people fucking picking up our shirts. So be on the lookout for that. And before I take us out one last time, also happening in the Hudson Valley, there's a lot of dope shows going on. So be sure to follow pages if you're a fan of hardcore, metalcore, any kind of like heavy music, or you're from the Hudson Valley. Follow Heavy HV on Instagram. Outsider Magazine, they're back doing shows in the New Windsor area at this really sick Veterans Hall venue. And everything that Alex and Nicole of Streets of Hate are putting on, they have this crazy show booked in May with Jay from Mindforce new band Crush Your Soul, Cross of Disbelief, another fucking Hudson Valley band is on there, as well as Discontent, New World Man, and the return of Soul Blind, who is also from the Hudson Valley. That show is happening at Reason and Ruckus May 3rd on a Friday. Make it out if you can. That's going to be a fucking huge show. Crazy mosh. It's going to be insane. But also, there's, again, shout out to all the Hudson Valley bands who are out there just putting in the work, having these shows, and it's just a good time to be involved in the fucking music scene. But we thank you all for those that have come back to listen, or new listeners, listen in the past. We look forward to releasing these shirts that'll be dropping once their website is ready to go.
Yeah, so with all that being said, look out for future episodes. Look out for the website, Dead With My Friends podcast on Instagram. That's where you'll find everything. Well, I'll have the website up and then have announcements on merch drops and stuff, which will definitely be happening soon. So until then, I'm Nick.
And I'm Steve.
Peace.